Say hello to this dynamic duo, DraftKings contributor Kenny Ducey and RotoWire's Nick Whalen. All right, guys, talking NBA. Which player in the following price ranges do you want in your DFS lineup tonight? We're going to start with the 9K plus range. So Jokic is the most expensive at 11K. Giannis right below him at 10.9. How do we feel here, Kenny?
I'm feeling pretty bad about all of these high-priced options. They don't have anything to play for, Jesse. That's the problem here. It's hard to pick out a guy that you think is going to be really motivated. And the thing is, I don't think motivation and Nikola Jokic have ever really been used in the same sentence. The way he really plays the game of basketball, it doesn't really ever seem like he's interested. So why not? Let's fire him up here at $11,000. Here's the thing. His usage rate is over 44% in 4 of the last 5. I mean, it's just sickening how much of the basketball this guy gets. The Timberwolves are up there in pace at 104, and they're 6th worst in points in the paint this year. So I think if you have to carve out or paint a matchup where a high stop be in a great spot against a bad defense, I think it's with Nikola Jokic. They don't have really a ton to play for here out west with the seeding. They're kind of locked in right now. So I don't know, if maybe he's going to play a full complement of minutes, but it seems like, even in limited minutes, this guy's been returning value for you. So I think that he's probably the safest bet here to get you 55 or 60 DK fantasy points.
Nick, this guy has scored 30 plus points in 4 of his last 6 games. Do you like his usage?
I think Kenny is spot on that you have to be targeting players with something to play for. I mean, Giannis was my first inclination when you scan the slate and look at these guys, priced above 10,000. But, losing to San Antonio earlier in the week, really put them in a tough spot to try to catch Brooklyn for that 2 seed. So we could see the Bucks pull back on Giannis and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday over these last couple of games. And at that price, I don't think it's worth the risk. But, one place I would look is Damian Lillard, a little bit cheaper at 9,500. You talk about a team that has something to play for. Portland is doing everything it can to stay out of that play-in. And they're going up against the Phoenix Suns team tonight that I think wants to beat the Portland Trailblazers and send them to that play-in. So it's a potential first-round matchup. And it's less about it's less about Phoenix wanting to play Portland. It's more about Phoenix not wanting to play the LA Lakers. So I think this is going to be a competitive game. I think, Phoenix is going to go hard all 48 minutes. Obviously, Portland's going to do the same. Damian Lillard went through a really rough month of April where he was shooting like 37% from the field, like one of his worst months of his entire career. But he's riding 6 straight 30-point games heading into tonight. And I don't think he's going to slow down at all. We're going to see a full complement of minutes for Lillard, McCollum, and the rest of the Blazers.
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask about that 7 or 8K range. CJ McCollum, is he in there, or is he a guy you're targeting?
He's on the list. I really like Clint Capella tonight at 8,500 going up against Orlando. A little bit of a disappointing performance for him in Atlanta's last game, but he's virtually locked into like 15 plus rebounds every single night at this point. So his ceiling is determined by how many easy dunks he gets from Trae Young and how many shots he's going to block. But he's a guy that has just an extremely high floor at the center position. And on the other side of that Portland-Phoenix matchup, I like Devin Booker at 8,300. I think this is a really great price for a guy who, again, I think is, has a lot on the line. He's going to play a ton of minutes tonight. He went for 34, 7, and 4 in his last game the other night. That was a tough loss against Golden State. I think not only does Phoenix want to beat Portland, but they want to build some internal momentum, bounce back from that loss against the Warriors and feel good about where they are heading into the postseason.
Yeah, Kenny, where are you looking in that 7 or 8K range?
Well, I'm looking at 3 teams here that I want to target, and they're going to be the Hawks, the Knicks, and the Heat. Now, these 3 teams are fighting for the 4th spot in the East, and the Heat actually are probably up against the toughest test. They're going to have to play the Sixers tonight, and then they're going to have to play the Bucks and the Pistons, and the Hawks and the Knicks have really 3 easy winnable games. So they're going to need to win 3 in a row, and there is no man that I trust more to put up a big performance when his team's back is against the wall than Jimmy Butler here at $8,800. The only 2 games really lately that have been kind of weird with him. There was that Cleveland game where he had, about 30 DK fantasy points. And then last game, he got poked in the eye, finished with 20. Outside of that, you're looking at a guy over the last 7 games who's consistently hit at least 5 times value. So at $8,800 now, a cheaper price than we've seen on Jimmy Butler in months. I think a guy who was pushing 6 times value in 2 straight games before he got poked in the eye is a great play here, despite the fact that it is a tough defense in Philly. But again, this is a team with a lot to play for. It's the guy that should be on the floor for 37, 38 minutes if he's ready to go. And according to all everything that, Eric Spoelstra said, he was ready to go back into the game. He could see fine. He's probably not going to be in concussion protocol. So I think that Jimmy Butler should be playing tonight. And if he is, in a big must-win really game for the Heat, if they want to get home court advantage, I think that I could see him having a nice game.
All right, Kenny, how about that 5 or 6K range? Who are you looking at in there?
Another team where I want to target their players because they have a lot to play for, the New York Knicks. RJ Barrett, $6,500. You probably knew this was coming, but he's coming off maybe his worst game ever, or at least the worst game of the year. He just couldn't hit anything from 3 against the Lakers. But before that, he had an average of 39 DK fantasy points in back-to-back games. So I think that you bet on his shooting coming back to earth here, and earth meaning that he's going to hit some shots, and he's going to play minutes. He's got 41 minutes per game over the last 2. He's put up 16 field goal attempts over the last 5. So he's going to play and shoot. So why not take that guy at 6,500 against a Spurs defense that is the second worst in basketball over the past 10 games? I think the volume's going to be there. I think the minutes will be there. And really all he has to do is have a decent game for you to appreciate what he can do for you at $6,500. Very cheap.
Nick, who are you targeting in that 5 or 6K range?
I have a couple guys from that Atlanta-Orlando matchup. And like Kenny said, Atlanta is on the short list of teams that still has a ton to play for in terms of playoff positioning. I think they want to win as many games as they can, probably, hopefully at least avoid Miami in round 1. I think they prefer to align themselves with the Knicks. Apologies to Kenny there. But Cole Anthony at 6,900. He went for 39 DraftKings points last time he faced Atlanta. Obviously, there's a lot to like about the individual positional matchup, assuming it's Trae Young who's shadowing him for most of the night. And then on the other side, I think $6,700 is a really good price for John Collins, who, his minutes for a while were kind of sitting in like the low to mid 20s. It was just kind of strange, like really, took a backseat to Trae Young and Clint Capella when we thought he would be, the clear number 2 option this season. And he's now back to being that over these last few games. He's played 30 plus minutes in 3 straight. He had a huge corner 3 to help seal the win over Washington last night. I like the way he's playing with a ton of confidence over this past week. And then if you want to go a little bit cheaper, I think Jakob Poeltl on the other side of that Spurs Knicks game, he's kind of been boom or bust. It's either he'll give you like 21 DraftKings points or 45. But if you're looking for that type of player, a cheap option at center, that's a direction that I would look.
All right, finally, guys, real quick, under 6K. Nick, where are you going?
I'll throw out a few names quickly. Terence Davis, he's got 43, 38, and 36 DraftKings points over his last 3 games. He's playing a ton of minutes with De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton sidelined. Mo Wagner for Orlando at 5,700, only if Mo Bamba doesn't play. If Bamba does play, then Wagner becomes a little too risky. And then Malachi Flynn, assuming that Toronto sits out its entire roster and Malachi Flynn has to play 1-on-5 tonight against Chicago, I think 5,700 is a great price.
Kenny, where are you going under 6K?
Going down to 4,700, Seth Curry for the Philadelphia 76ers. Great matchup here. The Heat defense has been really, really bad. Bottom 5 in the league over the last 10 games. And I did mention that the Heat have everything to play for here, but the Sixers, they might be missing a few guys. Their injury report is kind of full. They should be returning for Concord match. But frankly, this guy was doing better with those guys in the lineup. He's been seeing a ton of minutes. And I think for a Sixers team that's just kind of trying to ride and take it easy into the playoffs, Seth Curry could play a lot of minutes here, get up a lot of shots against a bad defense. I like that recipe for a big night at 4,700.